Hello everybody, my name's Nick and welcome to Book Talk, where today we'll be going over Ringworld by Larry Niven. Now this book is, you could say it's hard sci-fi, you could also say it's out there sci-fi, because some of the stuff that happens in this book is certainly out there. It's also absolutely fantastic. This book is also the start of a series of, I want to say 5 books, and would probably be recognized by most people today as the inspiration for Halo, because the main thing about this book is the titular Ringworld, the giant hula hoop in space which has habitable land on its inside, almost like a cross-section slice of a Dyson sphere. But whereas Halo and a lot of other depictions of these ring worlds in sci-fi these days are much reduced in size, the ring world in this book is literally the size of, or the equivalent of Earth's orbit around a star. So yeah, the scale is quite extreme, but it also makes it that much more fantastical. And the book does go into a lot of detail about the inner workings of the ring world, including the fact that it has giant walls around the edge of the entire ring to keep the atmosphere in as it spins. The centrifugal force basically pushes the atmosphere in, and then to stop it spilling out the side, it's got whack off great big walls. It's got solar shades positioned in a more inner orbit, which are made up of giant plates of metal and are each attached to each other using like tensile metal ropes of the kind of strength you'd be really hard pressed to imagine, and they kind of simulate day and night on the ring world. Otherwise the whole thing would be just illuminated the whole time. But you've got these intermittent plates in a more inner orbit, rotating slightly faster than the rotation of the ring world, and yeah, creates shadows on the ring world, and it's really well thought out. Later on in the book they actually discover where an area of the ring world has actually been punctured by a meteorite, and the atmosphere is escaping very, very, very slowly through this puncture. So even though this ring world has basically been abandoned for something like millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years, there's still atmospheres, plenty of atmosphere in the ring world, but it's slowly escaping out into space and creating a vertical hurricane. And the way it's described in the book, I am still wrestling with to this day. I first read this book a good few years ago, and I still can't figure out exactly how to picture that kind of thing. They describe it as like an eye. I mean, you've got the eye of a hurricane. Imagine looking like from space down at a hurricane, and imagine seeing that if you were just like stood normally, seeing that in the distance. It's difficult. Difficult for me at least. Anyway, the story, the main crux of the book is just an adventure across the ring world, just taking in the sights and just exploring it. But not to say that the universe it's in, and it is part of a much larger universe which consists of the Ringworld books plus a bunch of other short stories by Larry Niven, I think. Yeah, the universe it exists in is very well fleshed out, very complex and very out there. I mean, you've got these creatures which have, they're super scientifically advanced, but they've got like a weird body shape and 2 heads on stalks. It's super weird. And I believe it's them who are in the process of moving their entire solar system because the center of the galaxy is threatening to explode or something like that. So yeah, there's a kind of like a background ticking clock of something happening in the center of the galaxy, like a quasar or something, and wiping out all life in the galaxy. But that really takes place in the background of this book, and is more relevant to the larger Niven universe than this book exclusively. As I say, it's mainly just about wandering across this giant hula hoop and seeing what it's made of. But not to say that we don't go and explore some other places. I mean, they go to one planet, and one thing that will stick with me from that planet is the slide walks, which is still to me one of the most insane words I've ever heard, and secondly, it's one of the most fantastic words I've ever heard, because it makes perfect sense, but it also sounds utterly bizarre. And slide walks are sidewalks, paths, as we call them in Britain, that move. Imagine in an airport, the escalators that are flat, that help you walk faster. They're basically slide walks, and even every time I go to a airport and use one of them, it's fun for me because I'm thinking, I'm using the slide walk. It's something very simple, silly to me, but... But yeah, the primary story of this book is basically that a Ringworld has been discovered. This technologically advanced species that's currently moving their entire bloody solar system is scared of whoever the hell could build a Ringworld and want to know more about it. So they put together a team and then they go to the Ringworld to learn more about it. Shenanigans ensue and they crash. And that's basically what leads into them having to trek across this entire Ringworld. And it is interesting to me in that the journey that they take is really short compared to the sheer size of this thing. Anything could be going on this Ringworld, and they would just see a tiny little snapshot of it. Imagine crash landing on Earth, and you crash landed in Britain, and you had to trek to Scotland. That seems like a long journey just to walk, but compared to the size of the Earth, it's nothing. The Ringworld is like millions of times the square footage of the Earth. It's gargantuan. And so, yeah, there could literally be phenomena on there which boggles the mind beyond the vertical hurricane, but you just wouldn't know about it. And I think it's that drew me into Ringworld the most, because space is fantastical and interesting, but for the most part it's empty. And it's not the space itself that is interesting, it's what's in space. And for there to be this much land and basically potential is just fantastic for the purposes of storytelling. Then again, conversely, it could just be copy-pasted all the way around and absolutely nothing happens, but that would be boring. So now I don't want to go into too much detail about the plot itself, because to me it's more about the concept than the actual story itself. As I said, the story is basically just them trekking across this Ringworld and trying to find a way off after they crashed. But suffice to say, they find out some information, political intrigue, stuff like that, about the greater Niven universe, which probably is more relevant to anyone who has read the wider universe. And they find out a bit more about the people who created the Ringworld. But to me, it was all kind of just there. It wasn't too impactful for me. So eventually they just get off the Ringworld by some bizarre method, and yeah, they just end it with like, oh yes, we'll go back, exploit some more, and that's about it. But like I say, this book is more just about the idea of the Ringworld and just exploring what the nature of this thing is. Now, one other thing I do want to say is the writing. For considering it's like supposed to be a hard sci-fi book, the writing is surprisingly jovial. It's almost like a Terry Pratchett book more than an Arthur C. Clarke book. I mean, for crying out loud, I think the ship they go on is called the Lying Bastard or something like that. And I can only think of Rincewind's camel in Discworld that itself is called You Bastard. And the kind of things they talk about in the way in which they talk is very casual. It's just a very strange gelling of these two concepts, having like a super high concept sci-fi Ringworld, and then the comedy and joviality of a Discworld book. But being that this was published in, was it 1970 or something, there's a chance that Terry Pratchett may have been inspired by it. You never know. Only he took it that much further by having, yeah, we'll get onto that. Anyways, it's definitely a book I'd recommend reading, if not for the story itself, but for the sheer ideas on show and the concepts that are being explored. I found it really fun just to find out more about how the Ringworld itself works. Anyways, my name's been Nick. Make sure to let me know if you've read Ringworld and what you think of it, and also let me know if you want me to take a look at any particular books. Other than that, just have a great day, and I'll see you next time.